Sometimes the biggest question in love isn't, does he like me? It's, does he truly adore me, or am I just an option? Because there's a difference between a man who is interested and a man who is emotionally invested in you. When a man adores you, it doesn't stay hidden for long. It shows up in his behavior, his consistency, and the way he treats you when no one is watching. Let's talk about the real signs that reveal when a man is not just into you, but genuinely adores you. First, he makes you a priority without you having to beg for it. You're not chasing his attention. You're receiving it naturally, consistently, and willingly. That's not effort from pressure. That's effort from desire. Second, he remembers the small things. Not just your birthday or favorite color, but the tiny details you mentioned once in passing. That's because when a man adores you, you take up space in his mind. Third, he protects your feelings, not in an over-controlling way, but in a thoughtful, emotionally aware way. He thinks before he speaks because he doesn't want to hurt you, even unintentionally. Fourth, he includes you in his future talk. He doesn't just say me, he says we. Plans, dreams, ideas. You're naturally part of his vision. Fifth, he shows consistency, not hot and cold behavior, not confusion, but steady energy, because real admiration doesn't disappear overnight. Sixth, he listens to understand you, not just respond. You don't feel ignored, you feel heard. Seventh, he makes effort during conflict instead of disappearing, because even in disagreement, he values connection more than ego. Eighth, he introduces you proudly into his life, friends, family, and social circle. He's not hiding you. He's honoring you. Ninth, he checks on you without needing a reason, not because he has to, but because he wants to know how you are. Tenth, he respects your boundaries and doesn't punish you for having standards. 11th, he supports your growth instead of feeling threatened by it. Your success doesn't intimidate him. It inspires him. 12th, he looks at you differently. There's softness, attention, and emotional presence in his eyes. 13th, he invests time even when life is busy, because you're not something he fits in. You're someone he makes space for. 14th, he values your opinion. He asks, considers, and respects your perspective. And 15th, the most powerful sign, he makes you feel secure without confusion. You don't question where you stand because his actions already answered it, because real adoration doesn't create anxiety, it creates peace. And if you have to constantly decode someone's behavior, that's not adoration, that's uncertainty. But when a man truly adores you, you don't chase clarity, you feel it. Consistency is one of the clearest and most powerful indicators of how deeply a man is emotionally invested in you, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood signs in modern relationships. Many women get caught up in intense moments, grand gestures, emotional declarations, passionate conversations, and mistake those peaks of attention for real love or adoration. But true emotional investment is not defined by intensity alone. It is defined by stability. It is defined by what remains when the excitement settles down and everyday life begins to take over. When a man is truly consistent, his behavior does not leave you guessing where you stand. You are not left analyzing his tone, decoding his messages, or waiting for him to come back around emotionally. Instead, there is a steady rhythm to how he shows up. He communicates regularly without disappearing for long periods and then reappearing with excuses. He doesn't make you feel like you are competing with his attention, his friends, or his work. Even when he is busy, there is a sense of presence because he makes the effort to stay emotionally connected. This consistency is not about perfection. Life gets busy for everyone, and even a man who deeply cares will have responsibilities, stress, and distractions. The difference is that he does not let those things disconnect him from you emotionally. He may not always be available in the same way every hour of the day, but he remains reliably present over time. You don't experience emotional whiplash with him. You don't feel like you are constantly starting over every time he reappears. Inconsistent behavior, on the other hand, often creates emotional confusion. One day he is warm, engaging, and attentive, and the next day he is distant or unresponsive without explanation. This pattern can create a cycle where you begin to chase clarity, hoping the good version of him returns. But consistency eliminates that emotional chase. It builds trust not through promises, but through repeated action. A consistent man also communicates through his actions, not just his words. He does what he says he will do. If he tells you he will call, he calls. If he makes plans, he follows through. This reliability may seem simple, but it is actually one of the strongest foundations of emotional safety in a relationship. When words and actions align repeatedly, you begin to relax in the connection instead of staying alert for disappointment. Another important layer of consistency is emotional steadiness. A man who adores you does not use emotional withdrawal as punishment or control. He does not disappear to make you chase him. Instead, he remains emotionally accessible even during misunderstandings. There may be moments of disagreement or space, but not emotional abandonment. You are not left in silence wondering if you did something wrong or if the connection is suddenly at risk. Over time, this consistency builds something deeper than attraction. It builds trust. And trust is what allows love to grow into something secure rather than something uncertain. You start to feel that you are not walking on unstable ground. You are not guessing the rules of the relationship every week. You know his patterns, and those patterns make you feel safe rather than anxious. When a man truly values you, consistency stops being something he has to think about and becomes something natural in how he relates to you. You are not a temporary emotional escape for him. You are a steady part of his life. Remembering the small things may look simple on the surface, but in reality, it is one of the most powerful signs that a man is emotionally invested in you on a deeper level. Anyone can remember obvious details like your name, your job, or your favorite restaurant. But when a man truly adores you, his mind holds on to the subtle things, the things you mentioned once without thinking, the details you didn't even realize mattered, and the little preferences that reveal who you are beyond the surface. This kind of attention does not come from obligation. It comes from genuine interest. When a man is emotionally present with you, you are not just part of his conversations, you become part of his mental world. He listens not just to reply, but to absorb. That is why later, in unrelated moments, he might bring up something you said days or even weeks ago. It could be a small comment about how you like your coffee a certain way, a childhood memory you shared briefly, or a dream you mentioned in passing. And when he recalls it, it is not random. It is evidence that you are significant enough to be remembered in detail. This behavior separates surface-level attraction from emotional attachment. A man who is only casually interested may enjoy your presence in the moment, but once the moment passes, so does the information. There is no emotional imprint, but when he truly values you, your words land differently. They stay with him. Not because he is trying to memorize you, but because he is naturally attentive when you speak. You are not background noise in his life. You are something he actively engages with. There is also something deeply revealing about how a man uses those small details later. When he remembers your preferences, he often acts on them. He might surprise you with your favorite snack without you asking, or choose a place that aligns with something you once said you enjoyed. These actions show that he is not just listening passively. He is translating your words into care. That transformation from listening to action is where emotional investment becomes visible. Another important layer is emotional sensitivity. When a man remembers the small things, he also becomes more aware of how you feel in different situations. He starts to notice patterns in your mood, your comfort, and your reactions. Over time, this makes him more considerate. He may avoid topics that upset you or approach conversations in a way that feels safe for you. This is not about walking on eggshells, but about emotional awareness. He is paying attention because you matter to him, not because he fears conflict. In many cases, women underestimate this sign because it doesn't feel dramatic. There are no big declarations or obvious moments of romance. Instead, it shows up quietly, in memory, in timing, in thoughtful actions. But this quiet consistency of attention is often more meaningful than grand gestures because it reflects how present he is when you are not around. A man who forgets everything about you is not emotionally anchored to you, but a man who remembers the details is showing you something important. You occupy space in his mind, even when you are not physically there. That mental presence is where attachment begins to form in a real and lasting way. Over time, this pattern builds emotional closeness. You start to feel seen in a way that goes beyond surface interaction. You are not constantly reintroducing yourself or repeating your preferences. Instead, there is continuity in how he relates to you. He remembers, he notices, and he builds on what he already knows. When a man begins to include you in his future talk, it is one of the most revealing signs that his feelings have moved beyond temporary interest into something deeper and more emotionally rooted. This is not about casual words or empty promises in the heat of the moment. It is about the natural way he starts to see you as part of what comes next in his life. Instead of thinking only in terms of his individual plans, he begins to shift into a shared perspective where you and him slowly become us. This shift often happens subtly. At first, you may notice small changes in his language. He might say things like, "We should try that place someday," or "We would probably enjoy that movie," or "Next summer we could go there." These statements are not just conversational fillers. They reflect an internal mental shift where he is already imagining experiences with you included in them. Even if those plans are not fully formed or scheduled, the fact that he naturally frames the future in a shared way is significant. A man who is not emotionally invested typically keeps his future separate. He talks about his goals, his travel ideas, his career plans, and his life direction without integrating anyone else into them. His world is structured around me and mine. But when emotional attachment deepens, that structure begins to change. You start appearing in his thoughts about tomorrow, next month, or even years ahead. It becomes less about what he will do alone and more about what life might look like with you in it. This inclusion is not always grand or dramatic. It does not always mean he is talking about marriage or long-term commitments in explicit terms. Often, it appears in everyday language. He might casually mention how you would like a certain city, or how you both would react in a specific situation, or how a future event would be more meaningful if you were there. These moments are important because they are not forced. They are natural extensions of how he sees his life unfolding. There is also a deeper emotional layer behind this behavior. When a man begins to include you in his future, it means he is emotionally comfortable with your presence in his life. He is no longer seeing you as temporary or uncertain. Instead, there is a sense of continuity forming in his mind. You are no longer just part of his present enjoyment. You are part of his emotional planning. That is a strong indicator that attachment is forming. Another important aspect is how he reacts when he talks about the future and includes you. There is usually a sense of ease, not hesitation. He does not overthink mentioning you in his plans. He does not correct himself or backtrack when he uses we. Instead, it flows naturally, as if your presence in his future is already assumed. That comfort level speaks volumes about how he internally categorizes the relationship. Even in uncertain situations, this mindset often remains consistent. Life circumstances may not be fully defined, but his inclusion of you remains steady. This is because it is not based on external certainty but internal emotional alignment. He is not waiting for perfect conditions to imagine you in his future. He already sees you there in a way that feels natural to him. Over time, this way of thinking creates emotional security. You are not left wondering whether you are temporary or replaceable in his mind. Instead, you begin to notice that you are consistently woven into how he thinks about what is ahead. And that quiet inclusion often speaks louder than any formal declaration ever could. Respect for boundaries and emotional safety is one of the most defining signs that a man genuinely values you, and it often separates mature emotional attachment from shallow interest. When a man adores you in a real and grounded way, he does not try to override your limits, rush your comfort, or make you feel guilty for having standards. Instead, he recognizes your boundaries as something to be understood, respected, and protected, not challenged or tested for his own convenience. This respect shows up in many everyday situations. It may be as simple as how he responds when you say no, or how he reacts when you need space, time, or clarity. A man who is only interested in control or convenience may push, pressure, or subtly manipulate situations to get his way. But a man who truly values you understands that love cannot exist without emotional safety. He does not treat your boundaries as obstacles. He treats them as part of who you are. One of the clearest signs of this respect is emotional patience. He does not rush your decisions or demand immediate answers to things that require thought or emotional processing. Whether it is about the pace of the relationship, physical closeness, or personal disclosures, he allows things to unfold naturally. He understands that trust is not built through pressure. It is built through patience and consistency. And so, instead of forcing closeness, he creates space for comfort to grow. Another important aspect is how he handles disagreement. A man who respects your emotional boundaries does not turn conflict into punishment. He does not withdraw affection, disappear without explanation, or use silence as a weapon. Instead, he communicates. Even when emotions are high, he still maintains a basic level of respect in the way he speaks and behaves. He may not always agree with you, but he does not try to make you feel small or invalid for having a different perspective. Respect also shows up in how he responds to your emotional needs. If you express discomfort, concern, or vulnerability, he does not dismiss it or label it as too much. Instead, he takes it seriously. Even if he does not fully understand it at first, he makes the effort to listen. That willingness to engage with your emotional world rather than avoid it is a strong indicator that he values your inner experience. Boundaries are also tested in subtle ways in relationships. Sometimes it is through small requests, emotional expectations, or moments where pressure could easily be applied. A man who truly adores you does not exploit those moments. He does not try to guilt you into changing your mind or make you feel obligated to prioritize his needs over your comfort. Instead, he respects your autonomy. He understands that your ability to choose freely is part of what makes the connection healthy. There is also a sense of emotional safety that develops when boundaries are respected consistently. You begin to feel that you can be honest without fear of negative consequences. You can express your thoughts without worrying about being punished with distance or silence. This emotional safety creates a stable environment where trust can grow naturally. You are not constantly defending your feelings or justifying your limits. Instead, you feel understood even when you are still figuring things out yourself. A man who respects boundaries also respects your individuality. He does not try to reshape you into someone more convenient for him. He does not pressure you to abandon your values, your time, your priorities, or your identity in order to fit into his expectations. Instead, he meets you where you are and values you as you are, not as he wants you to become. Over time, this respect becomes the foundation of emotional security in the relationship. You stop feeling the need to over-explain yourself or constantly protect your space because you know it will be honored. And in that environment, emotional connection becomes stronger, not because of intensity or control, but because of trust and safety that remain steady. True adoration in a relationship is not measured by how intense the emotions feel in the beginning, nor by how dramatic the gestures may be in the middle. It is revealed in something much quieter, yet far more powerful, the sense of peace a woman feels when she is with the right man. When a man genuinely values you, he does not create emotional chaos, confusion, or constant uncertainty. Instead, his presence brings clarity. His behavior brings stability, and over time, your nervous system stops bracing for inconsistency and starts relaxing into trust. One of the most important aspects of this emotional peace is the absence of confusion. You are not left wondering where you stand. You are not constantly interpreting mixed signals or trying to decode shifting behavior. There is no emotional guessing game where you are forced to analyze every message, every delay, or every change in tone. Instead, his actions are steady enough that they speak for themselves. You don't need constant reassurance because his consistency already provides it. This emotional clarity is powerful because it removes anxiety from the connection. In many uncertain relationships, a woman often finds herself overthinking, questioning her value, or feeling emotionally unsettled when things change without explanation. But when a man truly adores you, he does not keep you in that space of doubt. Even during disagreements or busy periods, there is still a baseline of emotional security that remains intact. You may not have constant attention, but you still have emotional certainty. Another important element of peace is predictability in his care. This does not mean the relationship becomes boring or robotic. It means that his behavior is not erratic or emotionally unstable. You know how he will show up when he cares, when he is busy, when he is stressed, and when he is affectionate. This emotional predictability creates safety because you are not constantly preparing for emotional shifts. You are not waiting for him to suddenly withdraw or change direction without reason. A man who creates peace in your life also communicates in a way that reduces anxiety rather than increases it. He does not leave conversations open-ended in a confusing way. He does not disappear during emotionally important moments without acknowledgement. Even when he needs space, he communicates it in a way that is respectful and clear. This kind of communication prevents unnecessary emotional spirals and keeps the connection grounded in understanding rather than speculation. There is also peace in how he handles emotional challenges. Instead of turning problems into emotional instability, he approaches them with maturity. He does not escalate conflict unnecessarily or use emotional distance as punishment. Even when things are not perfect, there is still a sense that the relationship is emotionally safe. You are not afraid to speak honestly because you trust that your honesty will not destroy the connection. Over time, this creates a very important shift inside you. You stop feeling like you need to protect yourself from emotional unpredictability. You stop bracing for disappointment. You stop questioning your place in his life on a daily basis. Instead, you begin to experience something more grounded, emotional ease. You feel like you can simply be yourself without constantly managing the relationship or decoding his behavior. True adoration does not keep you in a state of emotional alertness. It does the opposite. It quiets the need for overthinking. It replaces doubt with understanding. It replaces anxiety with steadiness. And most importantly, it allows love to feel safe rather than stressful, because when a man truly values you, you don't feel like you are constantly chasing clarity. You feel like clarity is already present in how he shows up for you every day. When you look at all of these signs together, a clear pattern starts to emerge. A man who truly adores you does not rely on words alone, and he does not leave you in a constant state of uncertainty. Instead, his love shows up in behavior that is steady, thoughtful, and emotionally grounded. It is in the way he stays consistent, remembers the small details, includes you in his future, respects your boundaries, and most importantly, creates peace instead of confusion in your life. Real adoration is not loud or chaotic. It is not something you have to chase, question, or repeatedly prove yourself for. It is something that becomes clearer with time because it is built on action, not performance. When a man genuinely values you, you do not find yourself overanalyzing his behavior every day. You are not stuck trying to figure out hidden meanings or mixed signals. Instead, his actions are aligned enough that your heart and mind can rest in the same place. And that is the real difference between temporary interest and deep emotional investment. Temporary interest creates highs and lows. It keeps you emotionally engaged but unsettled. Deep emotional investment creates stability. It makes you feel secure even when life is imperfect. It does not eliminate challenges, but it removes unnecessary emotional fear from the relationship. At the end of the day, love should not feel like confusion you have to solve. It should feel like safety you can recognize. When a man truly adores you, you don't spend your energy trying to decode where you stand. You experience it in how he consistently stands beside you.